Good afternoon. I would like to call the meeting of the Assembly Committee on Revenue to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson. Present. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblyman Gray. Here. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Mosca. Here. Assemblyman Wynn. Here. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orentlicker. Here. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Chair Backus.
Present, and both Assemblymen Hafen and O'Neill are going to be right back, so please mark them present when they return. I wanted to welcome our guest this evening who will be speaking on Assembly Bill 37. Before we get started, we do have guests in the audience, and I wanted to give everyone a heads up. Our committee either needs to be completed and finished by 4:45 p.m. or we will recess and return to complete the hearing. But we'll go ahead and start. So I welcome our guest and feel free to start when you're ready.
Terrific. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, I'm Fergus Loffridge, the chair of the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board and the health director for the Fort McDermott Paiute-Shoshone tribe in McDermott, Nevada. Now let my colleagues introduce themselves before we get into our presentation.
Good afternoon. For the record, Valerie Haskin, Rural Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Sarah, S-A-R-A, Hunt, H-U-N-T, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Behavioral Health Sciences at the Kurt Krikorian School of Medicine at UNLV and Director of the UNLV Mental and Behavioral Health Training Coalition.
And back to me, for the record, Fergus Loffridge. Members of the committee, we're pleased to bring this bill before you. We've tried a number of times, but weather and such things have precluded that, and fully understandable. But we go into a little bit of our history and how this came about. There are five, for those that are maybe new to the session, five regional behavioral health policy boards. We represent the rural part of the state. These policy boards were enacted by this legislature in 2017, and our area encompasses Elko, Eureka, Humboldt, Lander, Pershing, and White Pine counties. So quite a vast area that we're covering, but this bill is not just centric to the rural areas. Very important. This is a statewide bill. Our current membership, as you can see, all of our boards are very diverse membership, so we have all different professions and walks of life in the behavioral health community identified. When we speak of behavioral health, and you'll hear that quite often through the session, you might hear mental illness or some other vernacular used. I thought we'd present this to you today just so you can see that when we talk behavioral health, it encompasses all four of these areas, so that as you hear that throughout the session. And with that, I'll turn it over to Valerie.
Good afternoon again. For the record, Valerie Haskin, Rural Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator. So when we're talking about behavioral health, and this specific bill is looking to affect the number of behavioral health providers that we do have in this state, we want to kind of outline the behavioral health providers that we're speaking to within this bill. This is a long list of the different types of behavioral health providers that will be affected by this bill. And so you can see that there's not only psychiatrists and psychologists, but we're also including marriage and family therapists, licensed clinical social workers, school psychologists and school counselors, and as well as all of the certified problem gambling counselors, drug and alcohol counselor types, and others. We also included behavior analysts and behavior technicians, while those providers tend to work more with persons on the autism spectrum. It's not necessarily a more typical behavioral health provider type, but looking at statute and the needs of the communities, as well as what behavioral health is defined in statute for the boards, we wanted to make sure that these professions were addressed as well. So it shouldn't be too much of a stretch for anyone at this point in time to understand that most of the state, if not all of it, is in a provider shortage area. And this goes for all provider types, including, of course, physical health providers, but we are in a very critical state as far as the availability of our mental health and generally behavioral health provider types. One point I'd like to draw here is that approximately 28.6% of Nevada's mental health needs are being met by the current provider availability. That's a quarter across the entire state. So the takeaway here is really that while there are other strategies and maybe other proposed legislation moving forward to fill immediate gaps, this is really more of a long-term solution to some of the long-term issues that Nevada has been experiencing for quite some time, even long before the COVID pandemic. In the development of this bill, we wanted to kind of outline this process for you so that you had an idea as far as who we've been working with and what we've been hearing. So in May of 2022, the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board heard Dr. Sarah Hunt's presentation on the Nebraska model regarding their behavioral health education center. And the board latched onto it and decided to move forward with this as their topic for this session, as it seemed to be a great model that we could implement in Nevada and have some positive outcomes. We had a couple of subcommittee meetings where we were able to garner feedback on this concept from local level stakeholders as well as state level stakeholders. Our chair, Fergus Loffridge, and myself and Dr. Hunt worked on the language, took the concept towards our stakeholders and our other board members, so we were sure to get a lot of insight and feedback before we even got it to this point and submitted it as the BDR. Some of the folks that were invited to the table for these meetings include all of the licensing boards, the Department of Education, local school districts, law enforcement, our prevention coalitions, which out in rural Nevada are the backbone and lifeblood of a lot of the prevention efforts, behavioral health providers, healthcare systems, and many others. We also currently have those stakeholders engaged, as well as stronger connection with the Nevada system of higher education necessary for this bill. High Sierra AHEC is Area Health Education Center, and with them we've also been working with the Healthcare Workforce Development Pipeline Work Group, which is a broad group of stakeholders working to affect workforce development across healthcare, behavioral health, and public health. The other policy boards and many others. So the general concept here is to build out a robust pipeline for behavioral health providers in Nevada. And with this, we really want this pipeline to work K-12 through professional practice. So we're building upon what we currently have involved and incorporate the pieces that are already in place. But right now, a lot of those pieces may be specific to certain schools or specific to certain areas or communities. So having this more cohesive effort that moves statewide is really what the main purpose of this board. When we look at this particular piece, what I would like to also note is that the specific goals and objectives of the center itself are outlined in section 6 at the top of page 3, if you'd like further detail, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that will look like in practice, K-12 through professional practice. So at the K-12 level, the center would collaborate with school districts to support and expand the career and technical education, or CTE, programming related to behavioral health professions in the schools. Right now, there are very few schools that offer any CTE programming related to behavioral health. In fact, CTE programming itself can be a little bit spotty across the different schools depending on who they're able to find to hire within the school districts. So we want to help build a more robust behavioral health representation within those programs. Also collaborating with the area health education centers, such as High Sierra AHEC, to start to include more recruitment efforts for high school and young adults who may be interested in pursuing behavioral health professions. Next, we really want to make sure that we're bolstering efforts there at the K-12 level to recruit persons who are representatives of historically marginalized communities, including people of color and those who are from disadvantaged communities. We realize that this is important and something that has to happen before people get to college. We need to start opening up those recruitment efforts. And then, of course, by taking ways to weave existing social emotional learning and mental health programming within the school districts with these recruitment efforts, and give kids an opportunity to see, hey, if you feel that this is important to you, you too can pursue a career in behavioral health. Moving on to the NSHE level, the professional programs at NSHE that we're really looking to affect here would be marriage and family therapy, clinical professional counseling, psychology, psychiatry, clinical social work, behavior analysts, all drug and alcohol counselor types, and some specialty medical tracks, such as psychiatric nurse practitioners. Again, all of those are outlined, I believe, in section 7. At the NSHE level, some of the work will include ensuring undergraduate students are prepared for the rigors of graduate school, particularly those who may be first-generation college students and whose families may not necessarily fully understand what graduate school really means when you're going through it. Also clarifying those pathways from and through undergraduate through graduate school, and helping kind of ensure that people are aware of timelines, deadlines, testing, and other things that need to happen. And one of the key pieces here is creating easily accessible opportunities for high-quality graduate and clinical internships or practicum, with an emphasis on creating opportunities to work with communities with the least access to appropriate care. So this can include rural communities, it can include historically marginalized communities, and other groups as well. Moving on to the professional licensing piece. So there are sometimes disconnects between the graduate programs and licensing boards across the nation. That's not just an issue in Nevada. And so with this, the center is going to focus on expanding the number of approved internship sites and approved supervisors from the licensing boards and making those internship sites more available to both graduate students as well as those who have just finished graduate school. And with those that are not already doing so, working with them to ensure that their processes to gain licensure, particularly for Nevada graduates, are expedient and efficient. And last but not least, we come to the professional practice end, and this is really where we're also including some retention, because now that we've recruited, we've gotten people licensed, we want to make sure they stay here. So with this, we'll be working with programs such as the Nevada Health Service Corps and other federal programs for placement for loan reimbursement, as well as looking for other opportunities to provide education for existing providers on the business of behavioral health. Some topics this might include is management and supervision of staff, which is generally not included in behavioral health graduate level programming. And then also recruiting eligible providers who have gone through this pipeline and bringing them back as some of those approved supervisors and supervision sites, kind of close that circle. So as far as the intention for infrastructure, what we're really looking to do with this is not create a building, but rather focus any resources on more of the utilization of remote technology so that the center itself can have staff across the state, which helps improve any chances and make sure that we're not focusing on just one community or just one school. We also want to make sure that that gives an opportunity for more diverse perspectives in the building of the center staffing and the programs involved. And this will look like a hub and spoke model. And this is taken from, I believe, the Illinois model that we were looking at, because both Nebraska and Illinois have similar centers like this that have been successful. And so the main hub would be seated in either UNR or UNLV, and then we would have regional hubs located in each of the behavioral health regions that are not served by the main hub. And that way we ensure that there's programming available across the entire state. Another piece of this is that those regional hubs will have specialized training available that may be appropriate for their location. So one of the examples is I was talking to someone the other day, and wouldn't it be great if we had some specialized training for behavioral health providers and law enforcement for co-response models, or for crisis response models that are in person, because there's not a lot of training for that. So that's the type of thing. That's not necessarily a specific issue, but just to throw that out there as an example. The work of the center itself will be moved and guided by an advisory consortia. We wanted to make sure that the advisory consortium itself was very diverse in its perspectives and covered all pieces of the behavioral health system itself. So we started out with the membership of the policy boards, because as the policy boards, it seemed like a great place to start, and then built out different pieces, knowing that we were going to be more involved in education, so ensuring that we're including school districts, NSHE, of course, and then also having a little bit more of a diverse perspective on people who have utilized services. So right now, the policy boards all have a seat that is dedicated to a peer and or family member, and we want both seats at those tables. We also want to make sure that there is specific representation for persons of color and marginalized communities. We're not going to get too far into the fiscal note today, from what I understand, but I just wanted to kind of put this on the radar. The current fiscal note is $2.3 million for the first biennia and approximately $2.7 for each thereafter. The Nebraska model focused just on psychiatrists and psychologists and used about 1.3 to 1.6 million. So it is more, but we are also affecting a much larger group of behavioral health providers with that funding. And while the board was very apprehensive about pursuing a BDR or a bill concept that would have a fiscal note. Ultimately, the consensus for the board members and a lot of the stakeholders that we worked with is that we're at crisis levels with our lack of behavioral health providers, and we really are in a point where we need to do something. And while there's a lot of funding coming down for different programs, that doesn't really matter if we don't have the staff to staff those programs and services. These are the references for the resources that are provided here and our contact information. And so with that, I will open it up to my counterparts, and we may open it up for questions.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I hope you catch where we're coming at with this bill. We've done a lot of work getting it ready for you so that we don't have to try to massage things. We've done a lot of work with that. But what we're trying to do here is to grow our own here within the state of Nevada. We see all too often, and we hear all too often, that folks are trained here. They have to go out of the state for supervision to get that licensure part. Case in point is White Pine County had a social worker, was in training. She needed to get her hours in for supervisory. She goes to Idaho. Idaho offers her a job. Guess where she's located now? In White Pine County, is again without a provider. We're trying to fix that. We want to get kids, young people, interested in the behavioral health field. You can go to a health fair and see all of the different things from the area hospitals and EMT workers and things like that, and all those fancy, shiny things, but how do we get them keyed into behavioral health at an early age to make a difference going forward? And that's what we're trying to do with this. We have lots of support from many stakeholders. We've heard to this point no negativity, so we're prepared to bring it before you. And I appreciate the time, Madam Chair.
Dr. Hunt, did you have anything to add, or are you here to answer any questions that may come up?
Sarah Hunt, for the record. Yes, I'm here to answer any questions, provide moral support.
Thank you so much for your presentation and traveling here today to present Assembly Bill 37. With that, we'll go ahead and start with some questions. We have Assemblywoman Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. You looked right at me. You knew, huh? So, first of all, I want to say, this is a huge undertaking, what you guys are doing, and something that is, so necessary. Personally, so I got my master's at Auburn in marriage and family therapy, and then I had to keep moving states, and so there was this constant drop-off during the licensing process. And you're kind of left out into this vast, wide world. You can't find somebody to supervise, and if you do, the job that you do have, it's too the supervision is too expensive. It's a nightmare. So thank you for what you guys are doing, because this is so very necessary. And now that I've went on this yay, I'm glad you're doing this. So we keep having this issue within this state with just barrier of entry with licensing. I mean, it's just constant. So, I actually don't know what it is here in Nevada for licensed therapists and what that barrier of entry. So that's going to be first question. And then second question is, are you guys working with the governor, or have you reached out to see if you guys can maybe reduce it a little bit if it's just too much, so that we can make this process a little bit easier? Because just going through the process of becoming a therapist and getting that degree, that your supervisors are on top of you like you wouldn't believe. Like, that was the most intense 2 years of my entire life. So anyway, just see where we're at with that. Thank you.
For the record, Valerie Haskin, thank you so much for the question. Assemblywoman Gallant, that was, yes. So last legislative session, this board put forward a bill that focused on licensing board and particularly streamlining those processes. In Nevada, for marriage and family therapy, as well as clinical professional counselors, I believe it's 3,000 hours that they need for supervision, which seem to align with most states. So we did an analysis of where Nevada lies as far as the different behavioral health providers and where that was. So that was kind of a tricky spot. We then ended up kind of pivoting and focusing more on, all right, how can we make sure that those timelines for getting the licensure process cut down are streamlined. And so we made a valiant effort with that with SB 44 during the last legislative session.
Thank you so much, Valerie Hoskin. If you guys also, when you're answering questions, if you don't mind stating your name for the record, that would be appreciated. With that, our next question comes from Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really glad to want to echo my sentiment from my colleague that this is a great program, and I'm so looking forward to what this could do. And great to see you again, Dr. Hunt. We had a great conversation in my office about this particular bill. I know that the sections of the bill that really cover the diversity and the intention that you're trying to do with including the marginalized communities, and you listed those things out there. I was just wondering in terms of language access. I don't see it mentioned anywhere, and I think that's important to consider because person of color and language access may not be the same things. So it's important for the community that I represent to ensure that that is clearly stated. So I just want to see your thoughts around that.
For the record, Valerie Haskin, Rural Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator. Thank you for bringing that forward. And I think previous to that conversation, that wasn't necessarily even on our radar. So I believe the board would be definitely open to an amendment to include language to ensure that there is also diversity in the language abilities and the fluency of behavioral health providers.
Madam Chair, if I may, for the record, Fergus Loffridge, to also answer Assemblyman, where we were at with the ideal for this is that spoke or the hub and spoke model, that what works in Las Vegas and the population that we're serving there with language may be different than what we have in rural Nevada with more of a Latino type. So we definitely are cognizant to that, and we can definitely work on amendments for that, sir.
Yeah, I look forward for that. Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Next, we will go to Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know we're getting close to the cutoff, so I'll try to make this short and sweet. The decision to put this under the Board of Regents versus, let's say, the Governor's Office of Workforce, I don't know what we're calling it today. Sorry, I know we're changing it. But could you just elaborate just a little bit more on why the decision was made to put this under the Board of Regents rather than under one of the Governor's Workforce Development offices?
For the record, Valerie Haskin, thank you, Assemblyman. So because this center would be very focused on working with the graduate schools itself, it seemed to be a little bit more efficient to put it within NSHE. However, I think that, if need be, we can probably explore other options. I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Sarah Hunt.
For the record, Sarah Hunt, thank you for the question. And this also follows in line with the other models from the other states where it's lived under their higher education systems. So that was also part of the direction that we talked about going in.
And I actually just have a follow-up question, kind of a yes/no. I noticed that in Section 6, it's a discretionary authority. It's not any mandatory with respect to the Board of Regents to establish the Behavioral Health Workforce Development Center. Do you guys have any inclination whether or not the Board of Regents is inclined to approve this?
That's me. For the record, again, Sarah Hunt, thank you for the question. So yes, this was actually presented to a special meeting of the Board of Regents at the end of February. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the exact date, but it was presented to the full board from the Chancellor that this was an initiative coming forward, and the regents at that time expressed full support for this assembly bill and provided the Chancellor and the system the opportunity to go forward in the session and support it. So it has been heard to the full Board of Regents, and they fully support it.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll move to Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the idea, really like the idea, and then I got to the fiscal note. Just wondering, I'm not opposed, like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just wondering, we have a lot of these programs that come up, and there's really never a way to benchmark them and see what our successes are. What are you guys going to be using for a benchmark and to show your successes?
For the record, Valerie Haskin. Thank you so much, Assemblyman. That is a great point. So we do want to make sure that any public funds are used efficiently. And within this, you'll note that the center is mainly responsible for putting together a strategic plan, carrying that forward, and evaluating it with those benchmarks. And so with that, we do have those models from Nebraska, as well as the one that is still kind of in the more formative stages in Illinois to learn from and to take their successes and challenges. And I'm going to send it to Dr. Hunt.
Sarah Hunt, for the record, again, thank you for the question. So there will be, as part of the language, you'll see a yearly report that's put out to multiple stakeholders talking about what the successes are, how are we reaching those benchmarks. So some of those benchmarks would be kind of helped form in that strategic plan, but certainly one of the big ones that you want to look at is, so are we seeing our licensing numbers trend up? And that's a big data point that we would want to focus on every year in that report. So are we seeing the number of licensed psychologists, psychiatrists, marriage and family therapists trend up over time? That would be a big one to start with.
Just a quick follow-up on that one. So will you guys establish targets so you'll actually be able to know if you're coming close? Not just trending, but actual targets you can reach.
For the record, Valerie Haskin. Yes, so if you look in Section 2, it also increases, or it outlines some specific areas that could have measurable outcomes, which we would do beginning benchmarks and then follow-up benchmarks and track thereafter.
Last, we'll go to Assemblyman Orlichter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this bill. It's, as you said, very much needed. So mine kind of ties into the benchmark, that slide that just the sad slide that we only have meeting 29%. Do we have any sense from Nebraska and Illinois? I don't know if we have enough data points to know how much we can move that 29%. Any sense from what's a realistic goal for that, how high we can get that?
Sarah Hunt, again, for the record. I can reach out to my counterparts in those states about that specific metric, but I would just say in general, around the metric of seeing the increased number of mental health professionals in Nebraska, they've been in existence, their model, for over a decade, and they've seen about a 39% increase in the number of mental health professionals licensed in their state, and that would be your traditional therapists, and about a 32% increase in the number of prescribers in their state over time. Those would be your psychiatrists, your nurse practitioners. So, but I can certainly ask them if they're also kind of tracking that needs met percentage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hunt. And if you do get that information, feel free to share it with us. We would love to receive that. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to taking testimony and support. And I always hate to limit people, but if you could do your best to keep your testimony and support to 2 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. And if someone says something that you already want to say, just say ditto and just put your name on the record. That'd be greatly appreciated. We'll go ahead and start in Las Vegas with I believe it's Mr. Cohen, and I don't believe anyone else is there. So let's just start with you to go ahead with the support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. I'll keep it short and sweet. Ditto. Thank you, and I yield.
I so appreciate that. I don't believe anyone else is in your room, so we will move to Carson City. Feel free to start on any end.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Alejandro Rodriguez, Director of Government Relations for Nevada System of Higher Education. To the Chair's previous question, I will confirm what Dr. Hunt stated. The Board of Regents voted at a February 3rd special board meeting to offer their full support for AB 37. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leanne McAllister, Executive Director of the Nevada chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. In late 2021, the Academy declared a national emergency in children's mental health, and we support this bill as we believe that it has a proven best practice in other states to increase the workforce, and I will, in the interest of time, submit more in writing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, John Etzel, Executive Director for Boys Town, Nevada. We run a behavioral health clinic down in Las Vegas with 4 full-time child psychologists and are certainly in support of AB 37 as our wait list since we started doing this in 2017 has continued to grow. We're well over 300 kids and families who are waiting for services, and when we get new providers that are coming in, it takes a considerable amount of time also to get them through the process, which has also been addressed here today. Another area that is a concern and that we think will be a positive benefit from this is looking at what's called a pediatric behavior consortium. If we've got the additional providers, we want to continue to attract more folks to come here as well, to hang their shingle and continue to do the good work. But we want people to be able to do that. So a pediatric consortium basically is a conglomerate of behavioral health clinics, typically with support from UNLV and from Dr. Hunt, to be training new psychologists, new psychiatrists to be able to be here and continue that. So once they do their year here as part of that internship, they're more likely to remain. Boys Town, as you may know, is originated in Nebraska, and that is something that Boys Town at our national office worked with University of Nebraska-Lincoln to create, and that allowed more folks to come as well and stay there. We're looking to potentially do the same thing here.
Good afternoon, committee members and chair. My name is Leah Case, Leacase, here today on behalf of a list of clients, very excited to be in support of AB 37. So the Nevada Psychiatric Association, those are the prescribers mentioned by Dr. Hunt, child psychiatrists especially, are in short supply in Nevada. The Nevada Primary Care Association, who some of you may have met during Community Health Provider Day, they represent the federally qualified health centers here in Nevada. Those are your safety net clinics. And then also the Nevada Public Health Association. Workforce is a huge policy issue for the Nevada Public Health Association. And so on behalf of those 3 clients, we are here in support.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Andrea Gregg. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for High Sierra Area Health Education Center, AHEC. And AHEC aims to build a strong and diverse healthcare workforce for Nevada's underserved communities. We do that through education, training, and community partnerships. We're very excited to provide our support for this bill as an organization who truly believes in the importance of grow your own. Granted, it is not a quick and immediate fix, but it certainly is moving the state in the right direction from a long-term investment perspective. And then I just would like to echo the importance of the comprehensive training and the mentorship and supervision pieces that come with this bill. and the ability to give students the access to a lot of challenges that we see when working with these students directly. Hopefully to give them ease in that access and then give them the resources that they'll need, required to obtain their continuation of those aspirations. And then finally, I just want to highlight Section 7 of the bill as it really underscores the critical importance of strategic planning. Certainly for the recruitment, education, and retention of a skilled, diverse behavioral health workforce in Nevada. We know how critical this is from a cross-sectoral collaborative perspective. And I think what they're really trying to do here is innovative in their thinking by bringing all of the traditional players together in a very untraditional way to ensure the successful pathways of those who are interested in pursuing such careers. So we fully support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Steve Shane. I'm a practicing pediatrician at Northern Nevada Hopes in Reno. And I'd just like to echo the support for AB 37. My patients on a daily basis suffer for the lack of behavioral health specialists in this state. And that includes, children with depression, anxiety, patients with autism who cannot get proper therapy with ABA therapy. So again, I think this is a sustainable model that could really greatly improve the care for my patients. And thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Bacchus and members of the committee. My name is Megan Kamlasi. I am the Associate Director of the Center for Public Health Excellence within the School of Public Health at UNR, and I am testifying today on behalf of the Nevada Healthcare Workforce and Pipeline Development Work Group. This is a statewide initiative that aims to improve, grow, and diversify the public health, behavioral health, and primary care workforces in Nevada. The group brings together more than 40 leaders from across the state. They represent a variety of sectors and are working together to break down the silos in which traditional workforce development has occurred. And the work group is built on many of the same ideas as the Behavioral Health Workforce Development Center of Nevada as proposed in AB 37, and similarly established because the current approach to improving workforce development has not yielded sufficient results, and a new approach is needed. While we've seen in the past targeted approaches to address behavioral health workforce in the state, they have not sufficiently moved the needle. We are seeing this session targeted initiatives like loan repayment to encourage behavioral health providers to come and stay in Nevada, but they're not enough. This bill provides a comprehensive, coordinative, and innovative approach to looking at the big picture, at the entire pipeline, as Ms. Haskins showed you. And we need to start earlier. We need to start in K-12. We need to continue providing opportunities for workforce development throughout the pipeline. Young people have to know about professional opportunities to dream to be it. So I would just say, great bill in order to getting people into and to advance through the pipeline, provides great opportunities for folks to become licensed, opportunities like internships, mentorships, things to keep them in Nevada.
Ms. Kamlasi, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're coming up to a deadline. And so with that, thank you for your remarks. I believe you also submitted something in writing, so we totally appreciate that, and that's an exhibit. I'd ask the last people, and I always feel bad when you're the last people, if you're in support, just say your name and who you're representing and limit it to that. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us and hearing us today. I'm Dr. Jose Cucalon Calderon, Cucalon Calderon. I'm a general pediatrician practicing here in Northern Nevada. I am in support of AB 37, and I think it's going to be wonderful helping families who have the very difficult access to be able to get it now. Thank you.
Chair Bacchus, members of the committee, my name is Jimmy Lau with Ferrari Reader Public Affairs, first name Jimmy, last name Lau, Lau, with Dignity Health, St. Rose Dominican. Ditto, we support this bill. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. My name is Zoe Houghton, ZoeHoughton, with Tom Clark Solutions here on behalf of MedExo Air 1 in support of the AB 37. Thanks.
Michael Flores, University of Nevada, Reno, in support. Ditto. Thank you.
We'll move to the phone line. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line that wishes to give testimony in support?
If you'd like to testify in support of AB 37, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and the rest of the hardworking committee. This is Dora Martinez, Dora like the Explorer, D-O-R-A, Martinez, M-A-R-T-I-N-E-Z, and I do represent the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition, and we are in 1,000 support of this bill. Some of my members who have disability have been waiting for services, so thank you and appreciate you all. Thank you.
If we can go to the next caller.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Sondra Cosgrove, S-O-N-D-R-A-C-O-S-G-R-O-V-E. I'm a history professor at the College of Southern Nevada and executive director of Vote Nevada. I am in support of AB 37, and I'd like to thank the sponsors. My son has bipolar disorder, so I know firsthand that we desperately need more providers. So thank you very much. I'm strongly in support.
Chair, there are no more callers at this time.
That is fantastic. Since we have no more callers on the phone, I take it there's no opposition. There's no one else in Las Vegas for opposition. Is there anyone here that wishes to give testimony in opposition of this bill? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give testimony in the neutral? And there's no one in Las Vegas or BPS for neutral. So with that, we'll go ahead. Are you guys okay without giving any additional remarks? We'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 37. Last but not least, is there anyone in the room that wishes to give public comment this evening? Great. With that, we'll go ahead and close our hearing this evening. We do not have a hearing on Thursday. Thank you. Have a good night.